Hi everybody, this is Barry with another video for our Breck After School Music program online. So this is our last week of the program. I'm very excited to tell you about a summer program that we'll be hosting. Art for Progress will be hosting a summer program. We're developing a platform, an online learning platform for it right now. It's going to be for people who want to take their art and music to the next level. And it's going to be very exciting. So check on our Art for Progress website, and I'll also be posting some links here on the YouTube channel to help you figure out how to sign up for that and sign up for the different workshops. There's going to be a lot of fun stuff that we're going to do. All right, so today, Mondays are generally our music production days, okay? And so I wanted to do a video today to tie up everything that we've learned. I want to sort of talk about what does a music producer do? So there are a lot of different ideas, a lot of different kinds of people call themselves music producers with a lot of different skill sets. But I want to talk about what fundamentally is the role and the job of a music producer in creating a piece of music. When I say piece of music, I mean a recorded, finished piece of music that can then be shared and potentially sold and streamed and all, even licensed and synced, which is what they call it when they use it with TV and film stuff or video games. So to produce a piece of music, all right, well, first of all, the producer makes sure that the song conveys the intended vibe. Now, who's to say what the intended vibe is? Sometimes the author of the song is the singer of the song, is the producer of the song, and that person's going to make that decision about how the overall picture of the song is going to look at the end. Sometimes the song is written by one person and it's performed by another person, and there's a third person that comes in called the producer that then sort of takes the composition, what's written, and then takes the skill set of the artist and combines those in the best way to make the best version of the song. Sometimes the producer wrote the song and then they bring an artist in to interpret the song, and it's their job to sort of get the kind of performance out of the artist that they imagine would work for the track. Now, obviously, they're going to want to call the artist who already has something that they like, that they think is going to work with the track, but you never know. And that the role of the producer is to get whatever needs to happen in order to get that song, that track, to sound the way that they feel like it could when they first hear it and they decided to produce the track. Okay, if it's from scratch and they never heard anything, and then it's up to them to decide this is good and this is bad. And there are artists and there are engineers and there are different people, but the producer, if somebody is given the role of the producer, if the group decides that one person has that role and that job, then it's up to those people to defer to that producer and let them have the final word. Let the producer have the final word on what is going to stick and what's going to be used in the final version of the track. Now, different people may have different opinions, and my next video is actually going to be all about how to work with feedback and criticism and work together on stuff. But more importantly, the role of producer, again, when somebody takes that on or is assigned that, they should feel responsible and they should be held responsible, and they should also be other people should relinquish their sense of responsibility and their sense of even having the final say if that person is assigned that role. So it can be in a group. It can be a very powerful, but also a role with a lot of responsibility. Okay. So next, the thing that I have on my notes here, and sometimes I like to refer to my notes, even read them to you, and then break them down a little bit. So let me try that a little bit, okay? So they make sure each element is doing its job. That's each sonic element, each musical element, is doing its job to create a whole sound where everything is working together to create an emotional or energetic story arc. Now, what do I mean about that? Well, okay, so I've talked in other videos about the fact that there's a story sometimes in the lyrics of the song, okay? And then, of course, there's the story of the artist or the author or even the performer of this song. those things are all part of what I'm talking about. But what I'm talking about is the sort of roller coaster ride that we go on when we listen to a particular song. So maybe the song starts out really quiet and eases us into it. And then it builds up to a climax, and then it breaks down again. And then it builds back up again to a bigger climax, and then it breaks down again, or it completely turns left and changes and takes us in a different direction, and then it returns back to the beginning section again. Okay? That's one way that it can happen. Sometimes the song comes in, like a lot of energy right away, and stays that way for a while. Sometimes it comes in with a lot of energy right away and then subsides to sort of like shock your system and then make you receptive for something else. So the energy, the loud, the soft, the way that the energy feels when what notes are chosen, because every different musical device, and what I mean by device, I mean how one note goes to another, how one rhythm works as it goes into another rhythm, how a drum fill leads into a part of a song, how whether the bass player is playing a lot of notes or is playing one long note. There's so many different variables. This is why music is very data intensive when we do it in a digital realm. But there are so many different things that are happening, and it's up to the producer to make sure every one of those things is doing a job toward the common goal of telling this story arc. When I say a story arc, the arc of a story, and if I'm just repeating stuff that you guys know, that's fine. I'm not trying to, I'm just trying to talk, make sure that everybody has all the information to understand what I'm saying. So the arc of a story is sort of like what I described, but let's think about it in literary terms. So there's the introduction. The characters are introduced to you. The setting is introduced to you, okay? The potential, opportunity for conflict or interaction of the characters. Then there's the development, or there's the body of we call in literature. And in the body, those characters now start to interact and things start to happen, and their position in our understanding of the story changes, and whether we view them favorably or unfavorably, or whether they are in a part of the story or not in a part of the story, and the story focuses on them or focuses on another character or another group of characters. There's an ebb and a flow to that, and that's the body. That's sort of where everything happens. That's the action, right? Then ultimately, in the best stories, that action leads us to some place. Now, the best stories don't really totally decide for us where they leave us. The best stories, I think, are ones that leave a certain degree of ambiguity and room for interpretation for the listener or the reader, the recipient of the story. You want to have a story that asks questions. You want to have a story that makes you feel empathy for the characters in the story, or empathy for the different elements of the story, and some kind of level of investment in how things turn out. Now, I'm talking in very, very broad, very general terms, because things are very broad and general. We can use any subject. There are threads, there are things that people commonly write about and whatever. I suggest trying those out, and also trying to see if you can write something that you haven't heard somebody write about, okay? Again, this isn't about writing. This is about producing the music, and you want to be able to you want to be able to make sure that the producer's job is to make sure that the story is told, that the story gets across, that the all of the different elements are working together in order to create this greater picture that conveys something. It's not going to be the same thing to everybody, but some of it will be the same to everybody. And like I said, there will be a certain, at the end of that arc, a conclusion. Okay, we're going to either return to the beginning, or we're going to get to a final part that sort of just ends the idea. There's a lot of ways of finding that end, but the story arc is sort of how that roller coaster ride, I said whether it's emotional or energetic, but it's sort of the thing that makes you feel like when it starts that you want to pay attention, when it's going that you want to keep paying attention, and then when it ends, it was supposed to end. And a producer develops a sense of how that is and how that works and is able to translate that sense into the actual product. Okay? The next part of my notes talk about finding the most effective source for each part. When I say each part, that can be an instrument or sound. That can be the player of that instrument or sound. So you may want to recruit someone other than yourself who has a skill that you don't have sometimes. Or if it's a group of people and there's somebody that generally does one job, but there's somebody else who's better at doing that job, that may be something you want to consider. Again, there's a lot of interpersonal dynamics that come along with this, and I'm going to get into that in a second. Okay, so the method of playing or preparing the instrument. So you may actually like a part that somebody's playing, but you want to hear a different sound. You want to hear maybe a different type of guitar, or you want to hear a piano sound instead of an organ sound, or you want to hear it on a synthesizer, or you, instead of a snare drum, you want to hear what does it sound like if we just use me hitting a cowbell, or me banging on the table, or me slapping my lap. We can try anything, okay? So the producer is the one, because if you listen to some of the greatest tracks, you will find out that some of the elements that to you never thought about what that sound was. If you listen to that sound, you might not be able to identify it. And these days with the internet, you can look it up. And sometimes it's a really interesting story how they got that sound. It's something that you never would have thought of. It's some creative experimental thing that they did in the studio with some found object that ended up working. Frankie talks a lot about the Beatles having sort of discovered and invented a lot of different techniques in the studio by sort of thinking out of the box. Also Queen, who are also known for doing that stuff. Pink Floyd, all of Frankie's and some of our common favorites are known for really using the studio as another instrument, and really also just looking, again, outside of the instrumentation of their live band setting and looking to produce tracks that created some kind of sonic landscape, some sort of even you can even think about it in a cinematic sense. Okay, all right. So the last element of what a producer's going to do in terms of finding the most effective source, they also are going to be able to. They also are going to be the ones to determine when the mix is proper and when the mastering sounds right. So they're going to see it all the way through, from the creation, from the laying down of each of the sounds of the different tracks or of the different MIDI instruments, whatever it is. And they're going to decide how those are combined together energetically. They're going to have the final decision on whether the mix sounds like it's doing everything it needs to, and then the mastering as well. So all along that process, they need to sort of approve that. Okay. Also, like I said, the producer is going to communicate with the contributors along the trajectory of the completion of the project, sharing drafts where appropriate. So it's up to the producer to keep everybody that's working on something sort of informed of where the project is, how it's coming along, what's needed from them, scheduling them to be available, and decide what things need to happen in the track in one order. An example of that, for instance, is I don't like for a singer to sing a final version of a song until I have all of the other instruments recorded. Now, what I will do is have the singer come in and sing the song just with a piano or an acoustic guitar or a ukulele, or just sing the song to a beat, whatever they're comfortable with, and then build the track around that. But what I want is I want the singer to be able to hear the track, the energy of the track, that whole trajectory that we talked about as they sing the song. I want them to be moved and inspired by the music, just as I intend the audience to be. Okay? And then, so you're going to communicate with all the different people. It may be just two people, it may be just yourself. I'm talking about if you're going to basically a good reason to collaborate is if, again, you find a limitation in your ability to complete a part, an element of a track by yourself, and it makes more sense to ask somebody who with a different skill set to come in, or somebody that may be better at doing that thing, or just not even better, has a certain, this is another thing, is that each person has their own flavor, their own voice. So yeah, you may be able to play a part just perfectly fine, but you might like the way that somebody else does it better. And that takes getting over yourself. It takes like suppressing your ego and thinking about and really listening to this stuff objectively and saying, how can I make it the best that I can? And it's not about, can I do everything, right? You don't have to do everything. What you're doing is making sure that it's as good as possible as the producer. Okay. Then the producer also makes sure that the final product is sonically competitive with other comparable work through the approval of mixing and mastering. So yeah, so in addition to they're giving their approval as in terms of does the song do what it needs to do, they also have to make sure that the mix and the master of the song, when that's put up against other broadcast quality recordings. If you hear one song and then you hear your song next, it shouldn't lose energy. It shouldn't feel like something went away. It should feel like it's still on par. And that has a lot to do with the mastering process. We can have a whole other discussion about that, but that's again the sonic energy of a song. That has nothing to do with the composition or the writing. It has to do with how the ultimate sonic product, the audio recording, is finished. I like that final spit shine on there. All right. And then the last thing that I would say that a producer is responsible for, they're not entirely responsible for this, but a good producer, of course, will help the music get to the ears of the people who they think will like it. So a producer also should be invested in a piece of music and a project if they're going to do the best job, and then really want to share that. If they do the best job, they're going to be proud of the work and they're going to want to share it with everybody. So we've had a lot of different lessons this semester about, since the pandemic hit, about how to make music, why to make music, all these different things. I just wanted to tie it up and talk about what actually is the job, what is the responsibility, the role of the music producer above and beyond all the technical considerations. My next video is going to be about criticism, how to give it, how to take it, and how to manage it. So I'll be back with you in just a moment with that. All right, have a wonderful day. Thanks. Bye.